Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Profound Upon. This is just a little brief introduction because there's a few things I need to get out of the way before starting this episode, as a lot has actually changed since the filming of this episode. Firstly, I'd just like to mention that the audio isn't great on this episode, and that is due to the fact that I lost a lot of important files on my computer, and these just happen to be some of them, including a full episode which I filmed prior to this, which is also getting re-recorded. But that is the first point I would just like to make. It's not as crisp and it's not as nice as it might be sounding right now. We salvaged what we could from the audio from the camera. It still works, it still sounds good, but we've got some room for improvement. There's always going to be room for improvement. This is just the beginning of this journey. Anyway, there was many reasons, personal reasons, I'd just like to add that I couldn't publish this podcast sooner than I'd like to. This was filmed about 6 to 8 months ago, and in between that point, there's been a lot of financial, emotional, and environmental struggles which I've had to overcome. And I would just like to mention that I am completely out the other side of that right now, and I've never been in a better mental headspace. But that is a story for another day. So I'd just like to briefly mention that the podcast today is with a professional rugby player named Aidan McGowan. So as I mentioned, this was quite a few months ago since we filmed this episode. So some things have changed in Aidan's life, some things have changed in my life, but everything that we mentioned and that we talked about in this episode is still very applicable and definitely transferable to your everyday life. So without further ado, I hope you do enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoy what we made of it. And I'll see you in a couple of seconds when I'm with Aidan. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Profound Upon podcast, where we have profound conversations on profound topics, sometimes with profound people. Today is one of them days. We are getting our first special guest on to talk through his success story. We'll be asking a few questions, picking his brain, seeing what he came up with. So today's guest is a perfect example of a person who personifies persistence. A professional rugby player who made 67 senior appearances playing for Bradford Bulls, Batley Bulldogs, Dewsbury Rams, York City Knights, finally, Royal Club, Huddersfield Giants. The man who has been publicly labelled by his coach and rugby league legend Luke Robinson as one of the hardest workers in the squad. Who is it behind all this? Aidan McGowan. Thank you for coming on today. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. I know we went to college together and things like that, so I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you being the first person down. So, plenty of questions I've got for you today. First off, I'm going to start off by taking you right to the beginning. Where did this dream start? Where did becoming a rugby player start? When was the first time you thought, I'm going to start pushing myself?
It's a tough question, that's to be fair, mate. I've always, since I was young, had an interest in playing sport. I think from whenever I can remember playing football, rugby, basketball, my parents made me go swimming. So I've always had an interest in sort of becoming a professional athlete. In terms of rugby, I started rugby union when I was under nines down at Locken Park, Bristol Rugby Union. My dad took me down there. I really did not want to go. I'm a footballer.
Right.
So I went down there, played down there for a couple of years, and then because of my love for all the sports, that actually led me to play rugby league. So I think rugby was on a Sunday. Rugby union was on a Sunday, and I was playing football on a Saturday. But that changed, so I was going to have to go play football on a Sunday. And I was trying to find a rugby team that played on a Saturday, and all the Saturday ones were rugby league were playing on a Saturday, but it was also in the summer as well. So it worked out even better. Football in the winter, rugby in the summer. Perfect. And then it just sort of took off from there, really.
So you mentioned that you had to take down the games. Was there anybody in your life who took mentorship you really you looked up to, who kind of guided you through the sport itself, or took you from A to B?
My dad, massive influence. He played a good level of rugby union. So I'd probably say my dad initially, and then I've had a lot of sort of mentors or people helping me along the way. The further I've sort of progressed as well, it's really helped.
So skip forward a little bit now. So when you first approached by
think it's about 16 you get scouted for. What was that experience like? Had you visualised it? Was you surprised when we first approached you?
Yeah, so it was 14 actually. So that scholarship at like under 15. So I was 14. There were a few of the lads on the team that had picked up scholarships, and I was still playing for the love of it. I'd only played I think 5 games or 4 or 5 games roughly in the league. And it was actually a couple of my coaches. So my mum actually taught the coaches.
Right.
And it was Craig Lee, Joe Flaherty, Paul Flaherty. They asked Sean Foley from the directions to come and have a look. I think Sean had got beat down to a couple of games, but I was actually playing football on the days that he came down. So he came down and eventually seen me. I think it was on a Wednesday night, and Huddersfield initially offered like a trial, which I was buzzing about. I never sort of rest. As much as my love for sport, I never sort of had that opportunity. I've never scouted in the academy in football or anything like that. So it's sort of like a dream really.
Yeah, I like it. So completely hit you out of nowhere.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
What was that transition like from amateur rugby to professional rugby? Like workload, training schedule. I imagine it's quite different.
Yeah, massive different. You still. So at like 14 to 16, that's sort of like the scholarship age that we call it. So you're still doing all your other sport. Football did have to take a bit of a sort of when I was about 15, I sort of didn't play football much, and I sort of put all my eggs into rugby, played a bit of basketball here and there. But it really started to nail down. It was probably 16 to 18 or 16 to 19 in the academy, but there was a lot of, like on a Friday night, I wouldn't. We had training on a Saturday morning. I wouldn't do anything on Friday. I'd chill and make sure that I'm ready for that training on Saturday. Yeah.
So skip forward again. So he was obviously going through the scholarship system. Then he was loaned out.
Yeah.
You were loaned out to a few clubs. Was this initially a shock? Was this something that you expected? Did you mention it before, or was it a little bit disheartening? How did you feel in the moment where you first got sent out?
To be fair, mate, even going through the stages, probably when I signed the scholarship, I was on the trial, and it didn't. Yeah, I think it got extended to a 3-month trial after the 6th week, and then they signed me on a scholarship. But even when I first initially got there, even when I signed my academy deal, the coach said when I initially got there, they were questioning why I was actually even there.
Right, okay.
So I wasn't anywhere near the top of the players scholarship.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of been a pretty similar story throughout my whole career.
Right.
When I went to academy, pretty similar. Ended up forcing my way into play, and then obviously when a bit of COVID, things like that. When I initially got sent out on loan, I was absolutely buzzing, to be honest.
Right. Opportunity to play a little bit more.
Opportunity to play more, get some open age experience.
Yeah.
Which was really good.
Right. So you enjoyed it then?
Yeah. No, I absolutely loved it. First, York, first team, Paulie gave me an opportunity there, which, to be fair, my first game didn't go great. And he carried on, gave me another opportunity there. Really helped me.
So when you were at Bradford Bulls, eventually, further down the line, you were brought back to the Giants. How did this play out? I've always wondered since it did happen that midway through the season, you just snatched the opportunity, or did you guess you've got a season to finish with Bradford? Do you know what I mean?
No, but to be fair, I love my time at Bradford, but my goal is always like, I think I signed first team when I was 17, going 18, and I think I was 22 when I made my debut. So I've been on the first team deal for about 4 years.
Right.
Like I was absolutely itching at the bit. And to be fair, at that point in the year, I probably thought this might be me. I was coming to the end of my contract. I thought I'm not going to get an opportunity. It was on I've been training probably once or twice a week with Huddersfield whilst training with Bradford. I actually wasn't going to come in that day on Tuesday. I woke up to a text or a call, I think, from Ian Watson, who said, we need you to come in. So it's a bit like, oh, what's going on here? And then I've come in. I can't remember exactly. Someone was injured, or someone had had to drop out, and there was a possibility that I might be making my debut on the week. So it's a bit like that week is all just a bit of a blur.
Yeah. So what was it like first time stepping out on that pitch as a professional player? Obviously, a bit more setbacks, multiple push around all these different clubs, all these different experience. What was it like actually stepping foot on that pitch after you? I'm assuming you went into watch Huddersfield Giants when you were young man. What was it like actually stepping out onto that pitch?
Yeah, I've actually got photos with me. I think I must have been about 7 or 8 when they used to give out free tickets to all the primary school kids. There's photos of me, I think, with Big G in the stand. So pretty surreal to be fair. Maybe the week leading up to it was pretty crazy. Like I said, that Tuesday, and then the club were really good about bringing my family in, and even bringing Joe Fly, one of the coaches that actually helped me when I got onto the scholarship. First that I brought him into with my family to present my jersey, which it was quite emotional to be fair.
It's a real moment.
Yeah, really surreal. That was an emotional moment, and then I remember being a bag of nerves for the rest of the day. Yeah. That was obviously the captain's run, and then the rest of the day leading up to the game. It was a night game as well, which did not help.
It's even longer to
even longer. You're rich and you don't know what to do with yourself. Yeah. But no, once I got into it, you sort of you beat yourself up to it, and then once it's there, like you just treat it as any other game. Yeah. Obviously, it's nerve-wracking the first couple of moments. I remember doing a big kick sprint, and I thought I was going to get onto it, and I realised about halfway through the sprint, I'm nowhere near the ball here. But I've absolutely blown myself out, and I was blowing for about 10 or 15 minutes after that. Right.
What was it like, all these legends that you've clearly watched growing up, what was it like to be actually picked on side this? Did it motivate you even more to push yourself?
Yeah, 100%. It was probably the moment when I thought about that was probably when I was a bit nervous probably when I started actually training with the first team, coming through as like an academy player. I think most people do, they get a bit starstruck. Obviously you see these lads playing on TV, you look up to them a lot, so you get a bit starstruck. So it's probably, I'd been in that environment for 4 years before I made my debut, so it was a bit not quite as maybe as someone who's coming in at 17, 18 straight out of academy. So I've been around them for 4 years, but definitely when I first came up, it was definitely a bit of starstruck. You could win each other.
We'll change it a little bit then. So what skills would you say you've learned from rugby that are transferable to real life? Because discipline's obviously a big one. There's no way you can make a professional rugby player without discipline. Is there anything else off the top of your head?
Discipline's a great one. I think that there's a lot, but discipline covers a lot of it. Discipline can cover what you do in your everyday lives, like your habits. That's a massive one. Backing yourself as well. That's probably something that I've learned over the years. I'm still probably not the best at it. Like still times when you have a bit of self-doubt and things like that. But more hard work, which is probably another more hard work that you put in, more confidence that you actually get out of that hard work. Right. So you get your self-belief and your confidence through the hard work, knowing that you've done the hard work. You know you deserve, like you've done enough work to deserve to get where you want to be, or you're doing as much as you can.
Right. You've got some evidence, really.
Exactly. You've got evidence. You feel like you are doing enough anyway. So if that's not good enough, then sometimes you accept, right, but it might not, as long as I've given my best and I've done absolutely everything that I can, I can't have any regrets.
Perfect. I think that could work in absolutely all walks of life. Anybody else listening, apply that. How often would you say that, well, a lot of people would say that sport is played with the body, but is won with the mind. How much would you say that mindset plays a part in rugby league?
Yeah, probably the biggest. I think you see a lot of players that come at one good year and then fall off, even at the top. But I think to be able to do it consistently, year on year, week on week, game on game, day by day, the mindset for that is ridiculous. I think someone that typifies that is Leroy Kudjoe. Every day is on the same. His standard is so high. He does the same thing every day. Habits, and creates the hard work, which ultimately shows.
Right. So have you got any techniques that you might be able to share that like maintaining the mindset? I know that you do personal training as well. To motivate other people. What techniques do you actually use yourself to keep this mindset maintained?
So your mindset's massive. Like I've spoke about your habits. I think your habits play a big role. I always set goals. So when I was in scholarship, I'd always say, right, make it to academy and you can be happy. Make it to academy, you can be happy.
Yeah.
And then once I was in academy, the next goal was like, right, you made it to academy. Now let's make it to first team. Let's actually try and see what you can do. Let's try and make it to first team. And then once I started my first team, it was right. Can you make your Super League debut? Can you prove yourself there? And then now it's probably you're looking at trying to make 50 games, 50 Super League games. Then you're looking at 100. Like it's always constant new goal setting and reassessing.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because a lot of people, I'd imagine, would look at professional sport and think as soon as you start, you want to be straight at the top. Obviously, if you say instead of setting a massive goal, which seems like a massive mountain climb, break it down into smaller chunks, you can push yourself a lot easier to get it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that definitely helps that you're not feeling overwhelmed and things like that.
Right. I agree. So, next question. You've had to deal with a lot of injuries. At times you've kind of hindered your career progress. Obviously, you get given really short contract extension. You've got a short time to prove yourself. Can you describe how you kind of overcame these setbacks? How important mindset was in overcoming them?
Yeah, definitely. Like I have had a fair few injuries. But it's still been good for me as well. To like support me with that. But again, like I always say this to my clients when I'm coaching. People worry about things that you can't control. There's no point in worrying about things that you can't control. You've got to. You can only focus on things that you can control. If they're out of your control, then you're wasting energy. You're wasting your mindset. You're wasting everything on trying to worry about them. Just control what you can control.
Agree more. So obviously the road in front of you kept completely changing. You set these goals. You've got to change that goal now. You've got to kick that can down the road. You might have to accomplish it at a different time. How did you actually adapt to maintain the motivation in that moment? Because obviously, like you say, you have set these goals, and then you get sent over to York, and you get sent to Batley. How did you maintain it to keep in mind that one day you could eventually be in this Huddersfield Giants squad?
It's a tough one. Wanted to prove myself, prove it to myself as well, that I was able to do it. But it was day in, day out, rather than worried about a big goal, just worried about ticking smaller tasks off. So making sure that I'm doing all my extras after training, making sure that I'm doing all my gym work, any extra gym work, conditioning, making sure that I'm as fit as I can be. So just sort of the 1%ness in terms of making sure that there's something that I need to work on, making sure that I work on that after training, and staying out if I need to longer than everyone else to actually do the extras.
Right, so it's taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, one day at a time, ticking them off, and then I think that you do it one day at a time, task after task. Like it just compounds.
Right, and you mentioned as well yourself interesting, trying to prove yourself right. I think a lot of people, this is where they go wrong, is trying to prove everyone else wrong instead of trying to prove themselves right. Has this always been something that you've specifically pushed yourself to do, or have you had any outside influence from anyone else in your family or your friends? Or
it's to be fair, I've not had any external pressure about. My family have always been quite education, make sure that you've got your education to fall back on, which is helping massively. But in terms of, it's more, proving to myself as well that I can do it. Not just proving everyone else wrong, but proving that to myself that I can do it and that I believe in myself.
More often than not, preparation is what kind of separates the good and great players. Is there anything in particular you do in preparation phase of the game, or like off the top of my head, you've got Michael Phelps visualises how he wants his games to go. Is there any routines or rituals?
Yeah, mate, I've got absolutely too many that I can say. I've got what do I do? Sometimes I have salmon pasta the night before a game. Every game. I used to. I had some ridiculous ones. I used to always have a bath the night before a game. What else do I do? I used to always make sure I had the same pair of boxes on. I used to pray a bit. I always there's certain routines in terms of when I get to the ground that I do, and how I prepare in the warm up, and then a bit of visualisation as well. Once you're on the pitch and things like that. I'm quite bad at that.
Right. I won't say bad particularly, but does this superstition, does it affect you when you don't get everything done when you walk into these games, or is that something you can work without it, but you just work better with it?
Yeah, I'd say I can work without it, but I do work better with it. Yeah. But it's all in your mind. It is literally all in your mind. So if there is something that I don't quite manage to do, or I almost see it as a challenge, right? Can you do it without that? I think that's where you've got to see.
So you kind of reframing it, aren't you?
Yeah.
That'll be quite important. What is the reframing of it? Especially, I remember once when we were training, doing some cardio stuff. It's like when we had 2 laps left to do. It's like we've got 2 laps. You've got 1 more lap left after this one. You know what I mean? It's like, every time reframe it. There's a bit of adversity. Put it in a different box. Work towards it.
Yeah, exactly. Reframe what you think.
So if you could go back to the day that you realise that inside you want to push yourself to be a professional player. If you go back to that one day, what would you tell your younger self? If you could tell him how it's turned out.
Yeah. What if I could tell him how it's turned out?
Oh yeah. So you can go back now, fully knowing that you've made it, and that little Aidan, who might have been doubting himself at the time, what would you tell him? But maybe for the viewers that are watching who are stuck in actually wanting to push himself, what would you tell yourself? Keep yourself.
There's a few things probably. I'd probably say keep doing what you're doing. Believe in yourself. And do all the little 1%ers every single day. If you do the 1%ers every single day, I think it's in Atomic Habits where they talk about you end up being 37 times better than where you started over the course of the year or something like that. So do consistent habits every single day, and it'll get you to where you want to be.
Okay. Well, someone who is clearly very aligned with their purpose, what would you say to somebody who does know the purpose, but like they're too scared to push themselves?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. The way that I sort of, for myself personally, I sort of said, well, if I do absolutely everything that I can, and absolutely everything, I still don't make it, or I still don't play Super League, I physically can't do anything more. There's nothing more that I could have done. So as long as I don't leave any stone unturned, you can be happy with how you just couldn't make it.
I think that's perfect. There's a lot of people who think that even if they do put all their effort in and they don't make it, it's just not going to be worth it. But there's so many things that you could learn on that journey to push yourself in that direction. You could just take up any profession. I'm a big believer you can actually do absolutely anything you want to do, absolutely any profession. The information out there to go do it. It's just a matter of pushing yourself. You say that you've kind of pushed yourself, like you mentioned earlier about trying to prove yourself right? Was a lot of your motivation internalized, like intrinsic? Was it coming from? Where it coming from its own source?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I'd say that it would. It was. Anyone that says they play rugby league for the money, lying. So yeah, I think all intrinsic.
Yeah. I'd say you're following your intuition, gut feeling. You know what I mean? It's like I'd say that's critical to success in any domain. Why is rugby a career for you? What is the gut feeling? There's got to be some things that come with a gut feeling.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's not just for the money.
Yeah, no, it's hard to put a finger on. Obviously, the camaraderie with the lads, the banter every day that going into work or work, that's great. The self-satisfaction that it gives me in terms of new challenges every week. Like, you don't ever face the same challenge or more than once.
So I personally believe that advice is like similar to a jigsaw. If you put the right pieces together, you can overcome any realm. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Yeah,
there's so much advice gets given to you. What's some of the stuff with you?
Advice. Always be satisfied from within, sort of, when I'm talking about being happy with how I've given everything. As long as you can be happy with the effort and everything you've given, you can't ask for more. So that's probably
So to bring this episode to a close, we'll keep it nice and short and sweet because it's on the first time we get a guest on. So the attention span might not be grasped yet. So this is a segment we're going to do with every guest. So I want you to look into the camera and give one piece of advice to the next person that comes up, which is difficult straight after I've just asked you about your best piece of advice. So if you can make it a little bit different, that's fine. But we're going to be compiling every single one into a segment every episode. You get to start off this chain. You should think yourself up.
Yeah, no, I am okay. It is a difficult question.
Yeah.
One piece of advice to the next person.
Could be absolutely anyone. So that's a difficult part.
Yeah. My best piece of advice would be do what makes you happy.
Right. I'm going to be putting Aidan's PT handle on the screen. I'm also going to be putting all the details in the description of the YouTube video. I'd like to thank you for being the first guest on. You've not got much to gain from this. You've just come to help our friends. I genuinely do appreciate it. I think that you're an inspiration. I think that you're full credit to your family. I'll say this as a friend. I'm very proud of what you've done, what you've accomplished, and what you've accomplished.
No, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. It means a lot.
Right.
I've known you for a while, but thanks for having me on as well.
So, thank you for watching this week's episode of Profound Upon. As always, if you care about your mental health, go and stream mental wealth, Spotify and Apple Music. Thank you for watching this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye.
I advocate to find something that captivates, then activate. Don't let small things aggravate, psychologically graduate. If they're there just to congratulate, that limb you must amputate. If they're selfish, emancipate, cause you just don't have time for it. This is my advice, no cadet. To overcome you must accept, not forget. Then the benefits will outweigh the threats. Choose the pain of discipline or have the pain of regret. The grass is only greener on their side cause it's watered.